were posters on the wall. Normal posters that sometimes still hang in the rooms of 18-year-olds. Olga Vladimirovna did not really understand them, but by the nature of her work she should have. Olga Vladimirovna was a psychologist. Each of the posters featured cute young guys dressed in trendy clothes, smiling warmly and cheerfully at each and every one. On the desk, the woman saw figures of funny animals, rabbits, hedgehogs and mice. She took one of them, examined it more closely. She turned around, walked over to the narrow bed and carefully sat down on a chair. A tiny girl was lying on the bed, facing the wall, covered with a blanket up to her chin. The girl pulled her legs up, pressed her head into her shoulders and sniffed mournfully. "Yul, we need to talk, I want to help you," the woman said affectionately, bending over to the bed. The girl let out a choked moo, her shoulders twitched and after a moment Yulia was crying loudly and pitifully, pouring her tears over the pillow. "We know what happened in that nightclub. You sat at a table, drank a cocktail, then you felt bad. In the toilet, you lost consciousness." Olga Vladimirovna continued softly, "And in the morning your parents found you lying on a bench near your entrance, you were unconscious." "Stop!" the girl shouted deafeningly, choking on her tears, covering her head with a pillow. Olga Vladimirovna fell silent, listening to muffled girlish sobs and loud sobs. "The doctors said that you were abused," the psychologist continued, barely audibly. "Get out! Get out!" as a mad girl screamed, squeezing a pillow in her hands and looking at the woman with a twisted, tear-stained face. "Get out! Get out! Von!" Not in her own voice she yelled, hitting the woman on the head with a pillow. Olga Vladimirovna staggered back, straightened her expensive glasses and quickly got up from her chair. Hastily she went to the door of the room, the pillow hit straight into her back. Olga Vladimirovna opened the door and left the room. There were two people outside the door. Man and woman. The man leaned his shoulder against the wall, the woman looked attentively at the one who came out. "Your daughter." Olga Vladimirovna began. "Adopted daughter," the woman corrected her, frowning. "Your adopted daughter is not able to talk now," Olga Vladimirovna continued, hearing a terrible girlish cry from behind the door. "Okay, we'll call you," the man said, escorting the psychologist to the door of the apartment. "The time is late, it is better for you not to bother her now," Olga Vladimirovna said, going out the door. The man closed the door of the apartment, returned, quietly walked to the door to Julia's room. He hugged his wife around the waist, dragging her along the corridor with him. The man and woman entered their room, closing the door tightly behind them. Even here, the plaintive, hysterical cry of the unfortunate girl was clearly audible. "When will she shut up?" the woman hissed, taking off her earrings. "Light, do not pay attention." The man and lay down on the bed. He threw his hands behind his head, watching the woman undress. "Honey, are we going to do this?" she whispered playfully, not paying attention to the loud girlish cry. She squeezed her fingers a little tighter, gently moved her palm. She lifted her face, reaching for the man. She closed her eyes, opening her mouth, her tongue touching the male lips. The man responded with a kiss, gently hugged his wife, leaning on top of her. Yulia's heart-rending cry was heard again. All arching under the man, Svetlana tried not to pay attention to the annoying cry of her adopted daughter. "Andriush, she'll wake up all the neighbors now," she said irritably, throwing her panties aside. "Never mind," the man passionately covered Svetlana's stomach with kisses. The man lay on Svetlana for a long time, stroking her wet face, brushing her thick black hair from her forehead and gently kissing her husband on the cheeks. The woman looked at him with satisfied, grateful eyes, stroking his short hair that had not even begun to thin out. Finally, Andrei carefully rolled off the woman, put his hand on her thigh and fell silent, restoring his breathing. Sveta turned over on her side, looking at her husband. "Andriush, how are you doing with our order?" she said with interest, moving closer to the man. "Everything is done," the husband smiled, turning his head to his wife. Julia again announced the apartment with unrestrained sobs. "There. Is everything okay? Without any consequences?" asked Svetlana, not paying attention to the suffering of Julia. "I think yes, the guys are smart," reassured her husband, hugging his wife. "Okay, I'll go see Yulia," the woman smiled, gently pulling back. Got out of bed, put on a robe, tying a belt on the go, and went out the door.